Well, let's talk more on the G20 summit now. And we're joined by the International Relations Minister, Ronald Lamola, who talks to us via the virtual platform tonight. Minister, good evening to you, and thank you very much for your time. Can I start with the wrap of the AU summit, which concluded its work this weekend? What for South Africa were some of the most important outcomes out of that gathering?
Yeah, thank you very much, Toli, and to the viewers. For South Africa is the unified position in consolidating the Africa Free Trade Area, which is moving forward, and the summit received the report in that regard, and also with the achievement and the progress made towards achieving Agenda 2063 of the AU on a number of issues, including the issue related to the silencing of the gun. The Peace and Security Council of the AU reported on the number of conflicts happening in the continent, and there was guidance as to what should happen. The first one with regards to Sudan, the AU pronounced itself on the cessation of hostilities, and also with regards to the Eastern DRC, the AU too on that one also guided that it is endorsing the outcomes of the SADC and the East Africa community, and also endorsing the fact that there must be dialogue to resolve the conflict going forward, and continue to put the trust on the president of Angola, and who is now the chair of the AU, President Lorenzo, to continue with the Luanda process dialogue, being assisted or with the process that is led by a former president of Kenya, President Kenyatta.
Yeah. Just briefly, Minister, on this AU wrap, I want to pick up on what you have said around the silencing of guns, but more specifically the Eastern DRC conflict, because that has become close to the hearts and minds of South Africans, given the loss of SANDF soldiers there. Is the SAMI DRC deployment staying put?
Yes, according to the summit, it supports the work that is being done by SAMI DRC, by UNESCO. Remember, it's not only SAMI DRC; there's also UNESCO in the area, and that's why the summit was unequivocal about the issue of endorsing the outcomes of the SADC summit, about the issue of cessation of hostilities, and also the issue of M23's withdrawal from some of the occupied territories in the area, and also for calling for a dialogue amongst even the people, the parties involved from the DRC, M23, FDLR, and all the parties that are involved in the conflict. Once all those confidence-building measures are in place, the South African government, working with SADC, will be in a position to guide on the way forward.
Yeah. Well, you talk about dialogue, but it does not seem that dialogue is at least taking place right now as regards the work of the M23 there, which is to capture even more terrain. If the summit DRC is staying put, then, Minister, are reinforcements being sent given the fatalities there and the pullout of the Malawian soldiers?
Yeah, obviously, on whether there is reinforcement that is being sent or not, I can't comment on that. As you are aware, it's a process handled by the Defense Force, and they've got their own protocol of handling such issues. For us, the key issue is the outcome of the PRC in terms of the way forward, the cessation of hostilities, dialogue. And you will be aware that the summit has just ended. We believe that President Lorenzo will put into operation soon the process of the dialogue, and also the chiefs of the defense will be also going to attend to the matter in terms of operationalization of the ceasefire.
Finally, on this matter, Minister, how many South African soldiers are in the Eastern DRC? And I'll repeat that question. How many injured South African soldiers are in Eastern DRC, and are they receiving adequate medical care?
Yeah, obviously, I can't also state the number because you will also be revealing what is the is a live situation. But indeed, they are there, and they are receiving all the necessary support from UNESCO, from Summit DRC, SADC processes, and also from the South African government. I can confirm that they are receiving all the necessary support.
Safe to say that it is difficult to pull them out at this stage?
I also cannot comment on that because there is a process that UNESCO is handling with regards to that. And at the right time, I believe defense will be able to communicate to the nation.
All right. I'd like to move on then to a different topic, and that is the South Africa-United States relations. Minister Lamola, President Ramaphosa recently telling members of parliament that at times like this, it requires for the South African nation to pull together as a united nation. But recent media reports are suggesting that Solidarity and AfriForum are likely to send a delegation to the United States in order to talk about their concerns around South African legislation that they find problematic. How will this complicate the work of the SA envoys that are expected to go to the White House soon?
South Africa is a sovereign state with a democratically elected government, which is a legitimate representative of the South African people. So we continue to engage with Washington, and we remain the democratically elected government that has got the responsibility to engage. And as you are aware, Tony, the Expropriation Act that they want to go and complain about in the U.S. has been taken to court by the DA and some of the parties, which is provided for by the Constitution. So our Constitution provides sufficient safeguards for any South African who have got grievances about any legislation in relations to the Constitution. But what the president has always maintained and said is that we have got a duty and an obligation in terms of the Constitution to redress the past imbalances of this country and also to transform the land ownership landscape of South Africa to reflect the demographics of our country, so that Black people and all South Africans have got a share and ownership in terms of the land. And that has always been a program of government done in line with the Constitution, with sufficient safeguards in terms of following due processes and also allowing the process to be informed by facts and relevant data. Any country in the world has got legislations that enables the state to act in the public purpose or in the public interest. In the US, it is called eminent domain. In England, they also have such laws. And also in Germany, there is no country in the world that does not have such kind of a legislation. And ours, as I've said, has got clear safeguards in terms of the Constitution. So the South African government, as the legitimate representative of the South African people, will continue to engage with the United States government, and all avenues will be followed. But we continue to understand that we have to plan for all scenarios. The first one is that we achieve in this objective. But if we don't achieve, we obviously have to look at all the scenarios, and hence this platform of engaging at bilateral level and also at multilateral level with our counterparts remains very important.
Minister, you talk about the South African government being the legitimate representatives of the people of South Africa. AfriForum, Solidarity, they are not. So I'd like for you to please keep that in mind as I take a break. When we return, we'll pick up on what exactly is the South African government's attitude to a grouping such as AfriForum and Solidarity going and talking to an international government or a government of another country about internal affairs here in South Africa. We'll continue the conversation in a moment. You're watching News at Prime. If you're just joining us, we are in conversation with the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Ronald Lamola. Minister, thanks for staying with us. I'd like to pick up on that very point, and may I ask that we try and answer quickly because we have quite a bit to get through. As I mentioned earlier, AfriForum and Solidarity are not elected officials of South Africa, and therefore going to the United States to complain about South African legislation, what becomes the attitude of government towards such groupings?
We take a dim view, particularly that they are also spreading false information, giving baseless information that is not backed by facts. And actually, you are aware, in this country since 1994, there has never been any arbitrary deprivation of property or land by the state. And they are also aware that it is not going to start with the Expropriation Act. It has got sufficient safeguards. So, and it is against this background that President Ramaphosa will appoint the necessary envoys that will then engage with this process, and DERCOP is the legitimate representative of the South African government. And we have just recently held our elections, which were held and they welcome by all and sundry across the globe, including the African Union Summit, where I am coming from. So we take a dim view for such conduct.
Might there be consequences for their actions?
At this stage, actually, we are focused on the G20, the AU summit, and if there are legal avenues, we will have to look at them in that context. But as you are aware, we continue to engage with the US, and South Africans from all walks of life have got the right to take action with regards to the laws that allows to express whatever that they may want to express, but there are limits in terms of the Constitution.
Is there worry that the envoys that will soon go to Washington might face humiliation at the hands of the Trump administration? Are you apprehensive?
Yeah, that possibility exists, but we will not get tired, or we will not engage because we are worried of any form of humiliation. Our first prize is that there must be an amicable solution to these challenges that we are facing. But obviously, we also have to plan for all scenarios. And one of the key ones has come out of the AU in full support of the work that we are doing, understanding the historical redress obligations that we have as a country, but also to see this as an opportunity in terms of the Africa Free Trade area, to look into the various platforms of value add in our country. So all this and other multilateral platforms like the G20 that we will be hosting, BRICS, and the G7 countries coming in support of South Africa and understanding its diversity, including the European Union, may serve as a route that, with all the scenarios, if the first one fails, we may have to look into the worst case scenario and other scenarios. So we look forward to engage with all the partners at a bilateral level, and also this week at the G20, which will help us to take stock of the current changing or evolving global dynamics.
Yeah, talking about the G20, the foreign ministers will meet this week in South Africa. And has the USA confirmed its non-participation? If the answer is yes, what's the official reason for the boycott?
No, Toli, there is no boycott. The USA is not boycotting the meetings of the G20. But Mr. Rubio has said he himself is not coming. And the official communication that we have received is that they will be represented in one form or the other in that level. But they have also confirmed that for the finance ministers meeting, they will be represented at a higher level from their national treasury. So they are not boycotting the G20. It's Mr. Rubio who have said he's not coming, but in the other meetings of the G20, they do participate. As you will be aware, Cody, before the elections, they also participated in the agenda of the G20, which was held here in Johannesburg for the Sherpas meeting in December. The USA was represented, and the agenda that is on the table is not a South African agenda.
Yeah.
It's an agenda that was adopted by all the Sherpas in December, and also is an agenda that we are carrying forward from the Indonesia, India, and Brazil. It is a recurring theme that we are just taking forward.
Well, let me take you up on that challenge then, because what you are telling us is that the US is participating, except, of course, that Marco Rubio will not be participating. And that's exactly the concern, Minister, that if the envoys do go to Washington, they will be greeted or be assigned junior staff. Is it going to be junior people that are participating in this G20 foreign ministers meeting? If so, does that not undermine the letter and spirit of these gatherings?
Yeah, for the finance one, it will be at the senior level. For the one of the foreign ministers, is not yet clear or confirmed as to exactly who will be coming. But Colin, you should also be aware that in the current administration, there is also it's in transition. There could be no senior people in some of the aspects, but in this regard, Mr. Rubio is there. So whoever that they will be delegating is someone that will be representing the face of the American government. And also when we go to the US to engage, we don't know yet who will be meeting, but up until we receive the official communication, we'll be able to know who are the people that will be engaging with the South African delegation as it comes to the US.
A recent communique from the US Embassy suggested that South Africa has, in the recent past, undertaken an anti-American agenda. Are you aware of that communique? And if so, what is your response to what America appears to be doing, which clearly is in response to that so-called anti-American agenda?
Yeah, I saw it on social media. Hopefully, as you are aware, we're at the AU summit. We'll go through to see if there's any official communication in that regard on that matter. But we don't have any anti-American agenda. South Africa is not anti-American. We share a lot of values with the United States of America. First, a constitution based on the Magna Carta principles. We are also, as you are aware, with an independent judiciary, a free media. There is a number of good social values that we are sharing with the U.S., and not only with the U.S., with many parts of the world that believes in human rights and those fundamental principles. And even the matters that we have been involved in at the UN and in all multilateral platforms, we have emphasized that they are informed by our constitution with the human rights outlook.
Let me conclude the conversation then, Minister, with this final question. President Ramaphosa recently decided to break with protocol, and he called Elon Musk directly to clarify matters around the Expropriation Act. And I think that was communicated by the presidency. Might there be more appetite for that kind of engagement, or has there been realization that that kind of approach may not be fruitful? If anything, it might end up embarrassing our head of state.
We will not get tired to engage relevant people, including interlocutors in Washington. And in my recent trip to Washington and also my other colleagues' trip to Washington, it is clear that in the US, you have to engage with the various stakeholders that have got an influence in the policy or the country's direction, from think tanks, to Congress, Senate, to also other interlocutors inside and outside the state. It's a reality that you have to contend with regards to the United States of America. So we will not get tired to engage all the relevant stakeholders that we think will help bridge the gap and also convey our information. But if they see it as a platform of ridicule and embarrassment, is their own baby. But we have got a country to run. We've got our national interest to safeguard. And we will, as I've said, continue to plan for any type of eventualities and all the scenarios. We are not engaging with a begging bowl. We are engaging as a sovereign country, as a sovereign state, which has got its own constitution, which must be firm on its principle, but also continue to engage all role players to persuade them in terms of where we are going to. But also, obviously, they also engage us in terms of their thinking of the direction, and we come to a conclusion. But we will not compromise on the principles and the values of this country, which are informed by the Constitution.
Ronald Lamola, the Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, thank you very much for your time, sir.